have just the
Yep.
resolution, I thought I would invite him so everyone could understand what it's about.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Now he's back.
Sorry about that. My computer was selected a different microphone than the one that was actually connected. Sorry about that. So anyway, thank you for having me. Our company is Planet Networks. We have been providing internet services for 25 years. We started up as a dial-up company a long time ago, and we kind of abandoned the consumer internet market in the early 2000s when the cable company and the phone company kind of got into it and made it so independent internet service providers really couldn't access the lines at the same prices that they could, so it was really uncompetitive. And we focused on our cloud services businesses, part of the business. And when the ARRA passed, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act passed a few years ago, Congress basically reaffirmed and said, hey, we wanted competition in broadband, we really meant it, and now we're going to make some changes that make it happen. So with some of those changes that happened, some of the changes that happened at the FCC after that has made it a lot easier for us to get onto the telephone poles. And as a result, we are able to build our own fiber network now and serve businesses and consumers. And so we are a phone company in the state of New Jersey, regulated by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. And part of that is that whenever we use any municipal rights of way, the New Jersey law basically says that we have to ask permission and that the town has to grant it, but it basically creates a two-way conversation so that you know who's building in your town and who's putting things in the right of way and how to contact us, and we know who to contact and what your procedures are for building in the right of way. So, and what we're doing is we're building out primarily to higher density areas initially, and then we'll eventually want to serve everybody. But typically we start with the higher density lake areas, business corridors, places where there's higher density per mile of businesses and homes, and then we will branch out from there. And then we kind of start typically from wherever it's contiguous with our network, and then we build from where we already have network to the closest place in your town, and then our township. Then we go from there, proceeding. It's always contiguous because we have to have a connection back to our network to be able to provide services. And we provide residential and residential consumer services as well as business services. Does anyone have any questions? Or
Robert, maybe you could let the council know the types of plans that will eventually be available to consumers and the speeds. I think that's interesting for business and consumers.
Sure. So our slowest speed, which we don't really recommend, and we don't, most people don't take, but it's kind of the most affordable, is 175 by 175, and that's it's the same speed up and down. It's 175 megabits up and down, and you actually get that whether you're doing it at 2 in the afternoon or 8 o'clock at night or 3 in the morning. You actually get 175 up and down. We actually over provision. It's actually provisioned at 200 by 200, but we sell it as 175 by 175, and that speed is $64.95 a month. And then we have a couple other tiers: a 300 by 300, a 500 by 500, and a 1,000 by 1,000. So our gigabit service, which is 1,000 up and 1,000 down, is $109.95 a month. So for $110 a month, you get gigabit up and down. And then we also have a 10 gig service now, which is a bit more expensive. It's $499 a month, but that's 10,000 up and 10,000 down. So I don't know what you guys are getting now, but typically, even with the fastest cable connection, your upload speed is limited to typically around 20 or 30 or maybe 40 megabits per second. And so, our speeds are hundreds of times faster than that. So, and everything's fiber all the way to the house. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Robert, I just had a question regarding, you were saying the build out and everything. Obviously, or not obviously, is your goal to fiber optic the whole town?
Yeah, so we don't do anything except for fiber optics. So everywhere we build fiber, and we build fiber to the building, to the house, to the business, whatever. So and for us, we're not a huge company. We're not, we don't have billions of dollars in venture capital or money from being in the phone business for 100 years. So everything we do has to be profitable because we use our own internal growth capital to build our network. So we typically, like I said, we'll do high density areas first because that makes the most sense. But we want to reach other areas. So we won't say, oh, we're not going down that street because it's not profitable. If we pass it, we'll go down the street if we have customers there who want our service. But our speed of growth and deployment is really dependent on how quickly we get people to subscribe. So in most areas where we provide service and other areas of Sussex County, it's a little bit different than where you guys are. You guys have Optimum, right, as your cable company?
Yes,
So
we do.
Optimum is a pretty decent company. They provide pretty good service and reasonably customer service. I use Optimum in my house, and so I'm very familiar with kind of the reliability of the service and the pricing and everything. I think they $126 a month, and I have 400 megs down, and I think I have 40 up. But I would say that there's at least 15 to 20 minutes a day that I can't use the internet just because it doesn't work, which is very frustrating. So I'm familiar with it, and that of all the companies out there, they're pretty decent compared to some of them. In other areas where we provide services, like Sussex County, for example, wherever we build service, we get almost 100% of the customers because the options are more limited than they are where you guys are. But hopefully we get similar take rates. So if we get close to 100% of houses passed, we'll be able to build pretty quickly. If we build down a street and we get 10%, 20% of them, it's going to take a long time for us to continue building because the return on investment just isn't there. But I don't expect that. I think we'll get at least 50%. Everywhere we build, we've gotten a minimum of that, and typically closer to 100%. So if that happens pretty quickly, then we expect that we'll build out as quickly as we can.
I have a question. So this would be fiber optics just for internet service?
Well, we also provide phone services, and we also we recommend, we have our own TV service that we're in the process of working on, but it's really for people who don't want to learn to do something different or new. What we typically recommend is people buy a Roku or an Apple TV or a Google Chromecast or whatever and use something like YouTube TV. You can stream on 3 different TVs. Your one-time cost for Chromecast for an HD one is about $49, or Roku is $49 to $69, $89, whatever. You buy it, you own it, and you can listen. You can watch Netflix, and you can watch pretty much anything you want. There are a lot of streaming services out there. YouTube TV lets you watch on 3 TVs at the same time for $49.95 a month. It has unlimited NVR. It's a great option. I don't know that our option is going to be as competitive as that is. That's probably a better deal. However, our TV option will be more like traditional cable, which a certain segment of the population is looking for a drop-in exact replacement. So you don't want to have to learn how to use something new. You want to be able to just flip on the channel and leave it on all day long and not have it say, are you still watching? And then you have to say yes. So for people who want that, we will offer something. Our phone service is $10 a month. We don't do any weird gimmicky things where you have to take our phone service to get a $20 discount in order to say that we have more phone subscribers. We don't really care whether you use our phone service or not. Very few people do, but it's reliable. It's unlimited nationwide calling. And I think we include Mexico, we include Canada, we include, I think, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. Pretty much any English-speaking country is unlimited calling too. So
this would be a good plan for somebody who just has internet-based TV.
yes.
And is not really interested in the, conventional cable television setup.
Yeah, and that's more and more people. I mean, at this point, more than
Yeah.
50% of the population have cut the cord.
Yes.
And the cable companies know that their days are limited as a traditional cable offering. It's more and more people are realizing that they can save a lot of money and have a lot more choices. And typically the quality is much better too with streaming television because it's minimum HD on everything.
Right.
And
Yeah.
a lot of 4K content, especially on Netflix and Amazon Prime, and plus a lot of people have Amazon Prime anyway for shipping, and you get a massive number of program for free, and Netflix is what, $12 a month or something, and that serves the needs for most people, and they're paying for an internet connection anyway. So, and we're happy to explain this to people and have somebody at town hall explaining kind of how to do this, just as a public service kind of thing. It doesn't really have anything to do with us. We don't make anything on if you sign up with YouTube TV or Netflix or whatever. It's just a different way of consuming that media content and saving money in the process.
Yeah, because I think that comparatively speaking, the speed 1,000 by 1,000 you were saying is $109 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and our network is very reliable. We build everything so that it's fed from multiple points, and we've been a network operator for 26 years. And the other nice thing is with our network, everything goes direct. So if you're going to Google, it leaves our network and goes to Google. If you're going to something on Amazon, it leaves our network and goes to Amazon. You're streaming from Netflix, we connect directly to Netflix. So you're not going across the internet. You're not going through a bunch of different other hops. And if there's a problem with something, we can fix it very quickly. So but it's very rare that we have issues because fiber is just so much more reliable. Unless there's a pole that's down and something's actually cut, it just works, which is a nice thing for the customer and for us.
So this is a way for us to get fiber optics in Hopatcon, which we've never had before.
Yeah. So and it's going to take us a while to deploy. I mean, like I said, we're capital constrained, and but we're interested in deploying everywhere we can. We have a lot of need. There's a lot of need out there. A lot of people have. We have a survey at getplanetfiber.com, and a lot of people have from Hopatcon have filled out the survey and said, "Hey, we want service." I also spoke to your. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but Freeholder from Hopatcon, and she said that she really likes it, and she hears that frequently from her people in the town that they would like another option and they'd like to have more competition. So, Sylvia Petrillo, maybe, I think.
Petrillo.
Yeah, I remember it correctly. Okay, took me a second to remember her name. Sorry. Any other questions at all, or?
So I believe it was appropriate to have him make the presentation so we could understand exactly what our resolution can address.
Yeah, so just to kind of clarify that, so most of what we do, and this is, I'm answering a question nobody's asked, but a lot of people do ask this, we're not planning to replace the poles, we're not planning on putting in new poles for the most part. We go on the existing poles. So the poles are either owned by the power company, JCP&L, or they're owned by Verizon. And you guys don't have any CenturyLink in your town. I think everything's Verizon in Hopatcon, right?
Yep.
So they own the poles and they have a joint use agreement. So sometimes you'll see, just because there's power on the pole doesn't mean the power company owns it. Just because there isn't telephone on it doesn't mean that the power if it's just for a telephone pole and Verizon's on it, doesn't necessarily mean Verizon owns it. But they have a joint use agreement. They share the poles, and at the end of the year, they do an accounting and they say, use this many of our poles, we use this many of your poles, and one of them cuts a check to the other one. We license every pole that we're on, so we have to take pictures of the pole, we have to do a survey, figure out where we're going to attach, and then we work with the pole owner to get what's called a permit to go onto that pole. So we will do some underground work. If it's an underground neighborhood, we'll feed it via the nearest pole, and then we'll have to do work. We'll work with the Department of Public, with your water and sewer departments. We'll work with other utilities. We have to do locates, and we're delayed in installing in underground neighborhoods because the cost is about 4 to 5 times the cost of doing it aerially. So those will be the last areas to get service, unfortunately. It's just an economics thing, but when we go on existing poles, typically we don't need to place any new poles. We just run along the existing ones, and as long as there's room on the pole, it's pretty straightforward. Sometimes we have to replace a pole if there isn't enough room for us to attach. That's an expensive process, but we work with the pole owner and we have to pay that cost if we want to attach to it. Sometimes if there isn't something across the street and it makes sense, we may approach the town, and this is where we would get the town engineer typically involved, and we would ask permission to place a pole in the right of way. And if we have to replace 2 or 3 poles in a row, and that may be $10,000 per pole, basically our service would end at that point. But if we can drop 3 poles for $400, $500 each for $1,500, we can keep going down the road, then we'll do that. And but that's something where we have to ask the town for permission in those cases. But most of the time, most of our installations, we're not installing any new poles. We're not digging up the streets. We're not, digging trenches or anything. We're just running on the existing telephone poles.
And this will come at no cost to the residents of the town.
Other than if they sign up for service.
Well, yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert, what's your time frame, assuming everything goes forward?
So we are, right now we're in Byram and we're building out to Lake Lackawanna, and we think we're going to probably continue past Lake Lackawanna and go around it and basically go into Paccon that way. We also have fiber in Sparta and we're working with Jefferson, so we'll probably come around that way too. So we want to feed it basically both from 206 and from 15. We also have fiber in Rockaway, so we're probably going to come up from the south that way too. And so we're not sure exactly what we're going to build first, and part of that depends on how complicated those other builds are and what the cost of those is. So I'm not sure exactly where we're going to feed it from initially, but we would like to come into town from 3 different areas and have 3 separate feeds. And we do have a business client, a medical practice that we need to have service by the beginning of next year. So we will be focusing, and they're in Landing, so we're going to be focusing on kind of building to them as the initial thing. And then when we build to them, what we want to do is we want to pass every single house that we pass and every business we want to provide service to. And then we typically will branch off from those areas. So we'll do a build to a large area or to a business that's kind of an anchor tenant, if you will. And then everything that's in the route to them, we'll branch off from there and kind of build out and provide services along that path. And then so our initial build is probably going to happen sometime in the fall to have it completed at least to Landing by spring. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we have a website that's a survey website that's getplanetfiber.com, GETPLANET fiber FIBER.com. So getplanetfiber.com. If you go there, you can put in your address, and what it does is it saves your address, and we look at where we have the most addresses, where we have the most inquiries, and that's where we build. So if Lake Paccon lights up like a Christmas tree and we have every street, everyone has put in their address and says they want service, then we will absolutely move it to the top of the list. So we build where there's the highest demand. Right now we're building out, our goal is to build out all of Lake Mohawk by the end of this year and all of Newton by the end of this year. So because we have pretty much every second or third house is there, and I know that once we have those, the rest of them will have service as well. So we're also building out in Byram, and we're also building out in Andover. So Lake Paccon is definitely a high density area. It's exactly the type of community that we want to build out in, and it makes a lot of sense. So if we have more people who say they want service, then we will definitely prioritize it.